I still remember the exact moment my world shattered into a million pieces. I was standing in the doorway of Constance Harrison's bedroom, watching her chest rise and fall with mechanical precision, when her eyes suddenly snapped open like a doll coming to life. Her bony fingers shot out from under the silk sheets and wrapped around my wrist with a strength that shouldn't have been possible for someone who'd been unconscious for 3 weeks. "They're going to kill you next," she whispered, her voice raspy but terrifyingly clear. Just like they tried with me. My knees buckled. The serving tray I'd been holding crashed to the floor, sending the afternoon tea and medications scattering across the Persian rug. Outside, I could still hear the fading rumble of Nathan's Mercedes as it disappeared down the long driveway, carrying my husband and his brothers away from the mansion. Away from me. Away from their mother, who was supposed to be in a coma. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to where this nightmare really began. 3 weeks earlier, I was in my classroom helping little Tommy Chen tie his shoelaces when my phone rang. It was Nathan, and his voice had that tight, controlled tone he only used during family emergencies. "There's been an accident," he said. "It's Mother." Constance Harrison had crashed her Mercedes on Route 7, just 2 miles from the mansion. The police said she'd veered off the road and hit a tree at 40 miles per hour. No other cars involved. No witnesses. She was found unconscious by a jogger and rushed to County General, where doctors discovered bleeding in her brain. By the time I arrived at the hospital, she'd slipped into a coma. I stood in that sterile hallway while Nathan and his brothers Gregory, the oldest, and Liam, the youngest, huddled with doctors behind closed doors. They didn't invite me in. They never did. After 2 years of marriage, I was still just Nathan's wife. Not really family. Not in the way that mattered to the Harrisons. When they finally emerged, Gregory's face was set in that cold expression he always wore, like he was calculating something in his head. "We're bringing Mother home," he announced. I blinked. "Home? But shouldn't she stay here where the doctors can—" "We've consulted with Dr. Wells," Gregory interrupted, not even looking at me. "He agrees that Mother would be more comfortable in familiar surroundings. The hospital can't do anything more for her anyway." Dr. Wells was the Harrison family physician, a thin man with silver hair who'd been taking care of them for over 20 years. I'd met him twice, both times at family dinners where he sat at Constance's right hand like some kind of trusted advisor. "But I don't understand," I pressed. "What about nurses? Physical therapists? She'll need round-the-clock medical care." That's when Nathan put his hand on my shoulder, and I recognized that gesture. It was the same one he used when he wanted me to stop talking. "Actually, darling, we were hoping you could help with that," he said, his voice smooth as honey. "You're so nurturing with your students. Mother would want someone who cares about her, not strangers." My stomach dropped. "Nathan, I'm a kindergarten teacher. I don't know anything about caring for someone in a coma. Dr. Wells will give you instructions," Liam chimed in, flashing that boyish smile that usually made people trust him. "It's really not complicated. You just need to keep her clean, turn her every few hours, and make sure she gets her medications. We'll have a nurse check in every few days. Every few days, not every day, not even daily visits." I wanted to argue, but 3 pairs of Harrison eyes were staring at me, and I felt that familiar pressure, the unspoken expectation that I should be grateful to help, that this was my duty as Nathan's wife, that refusing would mark me as selfish and ungrateful. So I said yes. The mansion felt different with Constance in it. They'd converted the largest guest bedroom on the 2nd floor into a makeshift hospital room. A mechanical bed sat where the 4-poster used to be, surrounded by IV stands and monitors that beeped softly through the day and night. Dr. Wells came by that first evening and spent 3 hours showing me how to administer medications, check vital signs, and adjust her position to prevent bed sores. "The key is consistency," he told me, his pale blue eyes fixed on mine. "These medications must be given at exactly the right times, morning, noon, and night. No exceptions. Do you understand?" I nodded, though my hands were shaking as I held the pill organizer he'd prepared. Each compartment was labelled with dates and times in his precise handwriting. "And Amelia," he added, his voice dropping lower, "Mrs. Harrison's condition is very delicate. It's important that she not be disturbed by too many visitors or unnecessary stimulation. Keep the room quiet, keep visitors to a minimum. The family trusts you to maintain the proper environment. Over the next 2 weeks, I fell into a strange routine. I'd wake at 6, check on Constance, give her morning medications through the feeding tube, and then rush to school. Between classes, I'd call the mansion to make sure everything was okay, even though Constance was alone and couldn't answer. After school, I'd race home, spend the evening caring for her, and collapse into bed exhausted. Nathan was supportive in his distant way. He'd pat my hand at dinner and tell me I was doing wonderfully, but he never offered to help with his own mother's care. Gregory stopped by once, stood in the doorway for 30 seconds, and left without saying a word. Liam sent flowers. The nurse, Dr. Wells, had promised visited exactly twice in 2 weeks, and both times she barely looked at Constance before checking some boxes on a chart and leaving. I started noticing strange things. The medications Dr. Wells prescribed didn't match anything I found when I searched online for coma care. When I asked him about it, he said they were specialized treatments for her specific condition and got irritated that I'd questioned him. The day nurse, a kind woman named Patty, quit suddenly, citing personal reasons in a brief voicemail that sounded strained. Then, 5 days ago, Nathan came home with news. "There's a real estate conference in Chicago," he said over dinner. "All 3 of us need to attend. It's important for the business." I set down my fork. "All 3 of you? At the same time?" "It's only 5 days," Gregory added. He'd invited himself to dinner, which he never did. "You'll be fine managing Mother on your own. You've been doing such an excellent job." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. It was the same voice he used in court when he was about to trap someone in a lie. "I really think one of you should stay," I said carefully. "What if something happens? What if her condition changes? Dr. Wells will check on her daily while we're gone," Nathan assured me. "And you have his number if anything urgent comes up. Besides, you've proven you're more than capable." They left this morning. I stood on the front steps watching Nathan's Mercedes disappear down the tree-lined driveway, carrying all 3 Harrison brothers away from their comatose mother. The mansion felt enormous and empty around me, its 40 rooms echoing with silence. I waited until the car was completely out of sight, then walked upstairs to check on Constance. I pushed open the bedroom door, balancing a tray with her afternoon medications and a cup of tea I'd made for myself. That's when it happened. Her eyes opened. Not slowly, not gradually, they just snapped open like someone had flipped a switch. Clear, alert, and fixed directly on me. I froze. She moved faster than I thought possible, her hand shooting out to grab my wrist. The tray fell. Tea and pills scattered everywhere. "They're going to kill you next," Constance Harrison whispered, her grip like iron. "Just like they tried with me." And in that moment, standing in a bedroom in an empty mansion with a woman who wasn't supposed to be conscious, I realized I'd been played. We both had. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stare into Constance Harrison's eyes. Eyes that were supposed to be vacant and unseeing, but were instead sharp and terrified. "Mrs. Harrison, how are you?" The words tumbled out in a nonsensical rush. "Close the door," she hissed, releasing my wrist. "Quickly. And call me Constance. I think we're past formalities now." My hands trembled as I pushed the heavy oak door shut. The click of the latch sounded unnaturally loud in the quiet room. When I turned back, Constance was struggling to sit up, her movements stiff and painful after weeks of lying still. "Let me help you," I said automatically, rushing to adjust the pillows behind her back. My teacher instincts kicked in, even though my brain was still trying to process what was happening. "Thank you," she said, her voice hoarse. "I've been awake for 8 days now. Do you have any idea how hard it is to lie perfectly still for 8 days? I thought I'd go mad. 8 days!" I sank into the chair beside her bed. "But the doctors said Dr. Wells said—" "Dr. Wells is a liar." Constance's jaw tightened. "He's been lying since the beginning. The accident wasn't an accident, Amelia. My brakes were cut. The room seemed to tilt." "What?" "3 weeks ago. I found something I wasn't supposed to find. Constance's hands twisted in the bedsheets. I have a safe in my private study. I keep important documents there, wills, trust fund papers, property deeds. I hadn't opened it in months, but I needed to review some paperwork for the accountant. That's when I noticed some files were missing. She paused, her eyes distant, remembering. I'm not a fool, despite what my sons might think. I called the bank and asked for copies of all transactions from the family trust fund for the past 5 years. What I found? She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Gregory has been siphoning money for years, hundreds of thousands at first, then millions. He's been forging my signature, creating fake invoices for properties that don't exist, paying himself consulting fees for work he never did. My mind raced. Gregory was the executor of the family trust. He handled all of Constance's financial affairs because she'd said she couldn't be bothered with boring business matters. But if what she was saying was true, Nathan and Liam are involved too, Constance continued. Not as deeply as Gregory, he's the mastermind, but they've been taking their cuts. They've stolen almost $7 million from the trust fund over 5 years. $7 million. The number was so large it didn't feel real. I confronted them, she said quietly. All 3 of them. In the library. I showed them the bank records. I told them I was going to the police, that I was going to change my will, that they'd never see another cent of Harrison money. Her voice cracked. Gregory just smiled at me. He actually smiled and said, Mother, you're not thinking clearly. Perhaps you should see Dr. Wells. 2 days later, I was driving to my lawyer's office. I had copies of everything in my briefcase. I was going to file a police report and remove all 3 of them from my will. I was on Route 7 when I pressed the brake pedal, and nothing happened. Nothing. The car just kept going faster and faster, and I couldn't stop it. I remember the tree getting closer, and then darkness. I felt sick. But you survived. Barely. When I woke up in the hospital, I could hear them talking outside my room. I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes. I really was in a coma then, but I could hear. Gregory was arguing with a doctor about moving me. The doctor said I needed to stay in the ICU, that moving me was dangerous. Then I heard Gregory say something about a generous donation to the hospital's new wing. And suddenly the doctor agreed that home care might be appropriate. They wanted you out of the hospital, I whispered. Away from witnesses. Exactly. I woke up 2 weeks ago, here in this room. It was the middle of the night. My head was pounding, and everything hurt. But I was awake and aware. I started to call for help. But then I heard voices in the hallway. Nathan and Gregory. Constance closed her eyes, as if the memory was painful. Gregory said, How long until the old bat kicks it? And Nathan said, Wells says another month on the current dosage. Any faster would look suspicious. That's when I understood. They weren't trying to help me recover. They were waiting for me to die. The medications, I breathed. Dr. Wells' specialized treatments. Poison. Constance opened her eyes. Slow acting, impossible to detect in someone who's supposedly dying from brain trauma. Wells has been giving you poison to feed to me, and you had no idea. Horror washed over me. All those pills I'd crushed and administered through her feeding tube. All those injections I'd given her because Dr. Wells said they were essential. I'd been killing her, and I hadn't known. I stopped taking them, Constance said quickly, seeing my expression. As soon as I understood what was happening, when you'd come in to give me my medications, I'd hold them in my cheek until you left, then spit them out and hide them. The injections were harder. I had to wait until you turned away, then pull out the IV line just enough that most of the medication would leak onto the sheets instead of into my veins. It's why the bedding always seemed damp. I'd noticed that. I'd thought she was sweating from fever and had changed the sheets twice a day. But why didn't you say something? Why keep pretending? Because I needed to know the full extent of their plan, Constance said. And because I needed them to think everything was going according to schedule. If they knew I was awake, they'd find another way. Something faster, messier. I'd be dead within hours. We need to call the police right now. With what evidence? Constance interrupted. The bank documents I had were in my briefcase, which disappeared after the accident. My lawyer never received them. It's my word against theirs, and Gregory has connections everywhere. He's the most powerful attorney in the county. He plays golf with judges. He has the police chief over for dinner. Who do you think they'll believe him? Or his traumatized mother, who just woke up from a coma making wild accusations? She was right, and I hated it. But I made copies, Constance continued. Before I confronted them, I wasn't completely stupid. I put duplicates of everything in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Account numbers, forged signatures, fake invoices, everything we need to prove what they've done. Hope flickered in my chest. Then we can... There's a problem. Constance gripped my hand. I can't access the box. The bank knows I've been in a coma. If I suddenly show up, they'll notify my family immediately as a courtesy. Gregory would know within minutes that I'm awake. Then I'll go. I'll tell them you sent me. You can't. The box requires my presence or a notarized power of attorney, which we don't have time to arrange. But there's another way. I left a key hidden in this house. A spare key that the bank doesn't know about. With that key and the right password, you can access the box alone. My pulse quickened. Where's the key? That's the problem. I hid it so well, I'm having trouble remembering exactly where. The accident did something to my memory. I know it's in the library, hidden inside a hollowed book, but I can't remember which one. There are over 2,000 books in that library. 2,000 books. We had 4 days before the brothers came home. There's something else you need to know, Constance said, her voice dropping. I heard them planning something before they left. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard Gregory say your name. And I heard Nathan say, we can't have any loose ends. The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. What does that mean? I asked, though part of me already knew. It means you were never supposed to survive this either, Constance said softly. They need someone to blame when I die. The inexperienced caretaker who made a tragic mistake. The wife who was negligent. By the time they come home, I'll be dead from your incompetence. And you'll be so distraught and guilty that when you have your own tragic accident shortly after. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. My husband was planning to kill me. Suddenly, a sound drifted up from downstairs. The distinct creak of the front door opening. Constance's eyes went wide with terror. Someone's here, she whispered. Quick, pretend I'm still unconscious. Don't let them know I'm awake. She laid back and closed her eyes, just as footsteps began climbing the stairs. My heart hammered against my ribs as the footsteps grew louder, closer. I dropped to my knees and frantically started gathering the scattered pills and broken teacup pieces from the floor, trying to look natural, trying to slow my breathing. Constance lay perfectly still, her chest rising and falling in that same mechanical rhythm I'd watched for weeks. The bedroom door swung open. Amelia! Is everything all right? I heard a crash. Dr. Wells stood in the doorway, his medical bag in hand, his silver hair perfectly combed as always. He wasn't supposed to be here until tomorrow morning. That's what Nathan had told me, daily visits starting tomorrow. Dr. Wells, I managed, my voice shaking only slightly. You startled me. I dropped the tea tray. His pale blue eyes swept the room, taking in every detail. The pills scattered across the rug, the broken china. Me, kneeling on the floor with shaking hands. His gaze lingered on Constance for a long moment, and I held my breath, terrified he'd somehow noticed something different about her. I thought I'd stop by early, he said smoothly, stepping into the room. Make sure you had everything you needed before the boys' trip. It's a big responsibility, caring for Constance alone. I'm managing fine, I said, standing up with a handful of pills. Just clumsy today, I suppose. He set his bag down on the side table and moved to Constance's bedside. I watched him check her pulse, lift her eyelids to examine her pupils with a small flashlight, test her reflexes. Every movement was practiced and professional. If he suspected anything, his face didn't show it. Her vitals are stable, he announced. Have you been administering the medications on schedule? Every dose, exactly on time. I lied. thinking of all those pills Constance had been hiding. Good, good. He pulled out a stethoscope and listened to her heart. It's crucial that she receives consistent care. Any deviation from the treatment plan could have serious consequences. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Serious consequences. Like waking up and exposing everything. Dr. Wells, can I ask you something? I tried to keep my voice casual. What exactly are these medications for? I looked some of them up online, and they don't seem like typical treatments for coma patients. His hand paused for just a fraction of a second before continuing to adjust Constance's IV line. Where did you look them up? Just medical websites. I wanted to understand what I was doing. I see. He straightened, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Harrison's condition is quite unique, Amelia. She requires a very specialized treatment protocol that wouldn't be found in general medical literature. I've been consulting with specialists at Johns Hopkins. These medications are part of a cutting-edge approach to brain trauma recovery. It sounded reasonable. It sounded exactly like something a doctor would say, but I'd just learned that everything about Constance's treatment was a lie. And now I couldn't hear his words without wondering what he was really saying. Of course, I said. I just wanted to make sure I understood. It's natural to be curious. He snapped his bag shut. But it's important not to second-guess the treatment plan. Trust the process. Trust the expertise. That's what's best for Constance. Trust. That word again. The Harrisons were always asking me to trust them. Actually, while I'm here, I should adjust her medication schedule, Doctor, Wells said, pulling out a notebook. Her condition has been deteriorating slightly. I'm going to increase the evening dosage. Deteriorating. Because she'd stopped taking the poison. I'll make a note of it, I said. My mouth dry, he wrote out new instructions in his precise handwriting, then reached into his bag and pulled out a fresh IV bag filled with clear liquid. I'm also going to change her IV solution. This new formula will provide better nutritional support. I watched him disconnect Constance's current IV and attach the new bag. The liquid began dripping through the tube, flowing toward the needle in her arm. What was in it? More poison? Something worse? There we go, he said with satisfaction. That should help considerably. How long before we see improvement? I asked, trying to sound hopeful rather than horrified. Hard to say with these cases. Could be weeks, could be months. He gave me a sympathetic look that felt rehearsed. I know this is difficult, Amelia. Caring for someone in Constance's condition takes a tremendous emotional toll. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I said automatically. Are you sleeping well? Eating properly? It's important that you take care of yourself too. His concern felt like a spider crawling across my skin. I'm managing. Good. Because Constance needs you healthy and alert. He picked up his bag. I'll be back tomorrow to check on her. Call me immediately if you notice any changes, anything at all. Even small things that seem insignificant. I will. He paused at the door. Oh, and Amelia, I noticed you've been making quite a few phone calls from the house line. Is everything all right? My blood turned to ice. He'd been checking the phone records. Just calling my mother, I lied smoothly. She worries about me being here alone. Of course. Just remember, it's best to keep Constance's condition private. The family values their privacy, and too many people knowing the details can lead to unwanted attention. You understand? It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I understand, I said. He smiled, nodded, and left. I stood frozen until I heard the front door close and his car engine start in the driveway. Only then did I rush to the window and watch his silver sedan disappear down the road. He's gone, I whispered. Constance's eyes flew open. The IV, get it out. Now. I grabbed the needle, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip it. I don't know how to do this safely. Just pull it out. Whatever's in that bag. I can't have it in my system. I yanked the needle from her arm. Blood welled up from the puncture site, and I pressed a tissue against it while Constance held her arm elevated. How much got in? She asked urgently. I don't know. Maybe 2 minutes worth? 3? We need to make me vomit. If any of it reached my stomach. She tried to swing her legs over the side of the bed, but they wouldn't cooperate. My legs. I can't feel my legs properly. It's from lying down so long, I said, hoping that was true. Here, let me help you to the bathroom. I half carried her across the room. She was lighter than I expected, her muscles wasted from weeks of immobility. In the bathroom, she knelt by the toilet while I held back her hair, feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare. After several minutes of trying, she sat back against the wall, exhausted. I don't think much got into my system, she said weakly. The IV was only connected for a few minutes, but we need to be more careful. We can't let him change the bags again. He's coming back tomorrow, I said. He'll notice if the IV isn't connected. Then we'll have to make it look like it is. Constance's mind was already working. We can insert the needle just under my skin instead of into the vein. It'll look right to a casual check, but the medication will leak into the tissue instead of my bloodstream. It'll cause some swelling and bruising, but that's better than being poisoned. I helped her back to bed, my mind reeling. He was checking the phone records. He knows I've been making calls. Of course he has. They're watching everything you do. Constance grabbed my hand. Amelia, you need to understand something. These men, my sons, Doctor. Wells, they've thought of everything. Every possible way you might get help, every person you might call, every route you might use to escape. They've planned this for weeks, maybe months. Then what do? We find that key, tonight. It's our only chance. But there are 2,000 books in the library. Then we'd better get started. Constance tried to stand again, but her legs buckled. Damn it. I need to build my strength back. 3 weeks in bed has made me weak as a kitten. You should rest. I can search the library myself. No. She grabbed my arm with surprising force. You don't know what you're looking for. The book is about ballet. I remember that much. It was from my dancing days. Dark blue cover, gold lettering. I hollowed it out myself years ago. It was my hiding place for things I wanted to keep secret from my husband when he was alive. A thought occurred to me. If you hid it when your husband was alive, that was decades ago. Are you sure it's still there? Constance's face went pale. It has to be. I never moved it. Unless... She didn't finish the sentence, but we were both thinking the same thing. Unless the brothers had found it during their weeks of having free run of the house. There's only one way to find out, I said. I helped Constance practice walking around the room for 20 minutes until her legs remembered how to work. She moved like a newborn deer, shaky and uncertain, but determined. When she could make it from the bed to the window and back without my support, we decided she was ready. Wait, Constance said as I opened the bedroom door. Before we go down there, you need to know something else. Something I heard Gregory tell Nathan the night before they left. What? She met my eyes, and I saw real fear there. He said, make sure the cameras are recording. We'll need proof of her negligence when this is over. My breath caught. Cameras? What cameras? I don't know, but they're somewhere in this house. Watching us right now. We both looked around the room with new eyes, searching for the tiny lens that might be recording our every move. The thought that they'd been watching all along, that they might have seen Constance wake up, that they could be seeing us right now. We have to assume they're everywhere, Constance whispered, which means we have to be very, very careful about what we do next. A sound from outside made us both freeze. A car engine. Coming up the driveway, I ran to the window and looked out. A dark sedan was parking in front of the house. Not Dr. Wells's car. I didn't recognize it at all. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was middle-aged, wearing nurse's scrubs, and she looked terrified. That's Patty, Constance breathed. The nurse who quit. What is she doing here? We watched as Patty hurried to the front door and rang the bell. Then she looked up, directly at Constance's window, and mouthed 2 words. Help me. I flew down the stairs, my footsteps echoing through the empty mansion. Through the frosted glass of the front door, I could see Patty's silhouette, shifting nervously from foot to foot. I yanked the door open. Patty, what are you... Is anyone else here? She interrupted, her eyes darting past me into the hallway. Tell me you're alone, just me and Constance. Dr. Wells left about 30 minutes ago. Her face went white. He was here. Did he see me drive up? No, he was already gone. Patty, what's going on? She pushed past me into the house, immediately moving away from the windows. Her hands were trembling. I shouldn't be here. This is so stupid. But I couldn't stop thinking about you, alone in this house with her, and I had to warn you. Warn me about what? Patty glanced up the staircase, then back at me. Can we talk somewhere private? Away from her room. She's awake, Patty. The nurse staggered backward like I'd slapped her. What? Constance is awake. She's been awake for over a week. She's been pretending to be in a coma because she knows her sons are trying to kill her. For a long moment, Patty just stared at me. Then, slowly, she sank onto the bottom step of the staircase and put her head in her hands. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, I knew it. I knew something was wrong. I sat beside her. Tell me everything. Why did you really quit? Patty took a shaky breath. About 3 weeks ago, when Mrs. Harrison first came home from the hospital, I was assigned to be her primary nurse. Day shift. I've been a nurse for 22 years. I know what proper coma care looks like. And what Dr. Wells was prescribing made no sense. None of it. The medications, I said. The medications, the treatment schedule, all of it. I started asking questions. Why wasn't she on standard anticonvulsants? Why were we giving her medications typically used for heart conditions when her heart was fine? Dr. Wells got defensive. He said I was questioning his expertise, that he was consulting with specialists I'd never heard of. She looked up at me with haunted eyes. So I did what any responsible nurse would do. I called Johns Hopkins, where he claimed he was consulting. They'd never heard of him. Never heard of any experimental treatment for Mrs. Harrison. That's when I knew he was lying. What did you do? I confronted him, privately, in the kitchen. I told him I was going to report him to the medical board unless he explained what was really happening. He just smiled at me, Amelia, smiled and said, I don't think you want to do that. Patty's voice cracked. The next day, my daughter didn't come home from school. She's 14. She takes the bus every day, gets home at 3:30 like clockwork. At 4 o'clock, I got a phone call from Gregory Harrison. He told me my daughter was fine, that she was just spending time with some friends and would be home soon. Then he said, accidents happen so easily with teenagers. It would be terrible if something happened to yours. My hands clenched into fists. He threatened your daughter. She came home an hour later. She said a man in a nice suit had offered her a ride home from the bus stop, said her mother had sent him. She was smart enough to refuse, but he followed her for 3 blocks before driving away. She was terrified. That's when you quit. I quit that same night. I was so scared I didn't even come to collect my last paycheck. I just wanted to get my daughter and disappear. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. About that sweet kindergarten teacher they'd left alone with a dying woman. I kept wondering what they'd do to you when she finally died. They're planning to blame me, I said quietly. Make it look like I was negligent. Then I'll have my own accident. Patty closed her eyes. I was afraid of that. There's more. I told her about the cut brakes, the stolen money, the hidden evidence. Her expression grew more horrified with each detail. We have to go to the police, she said when I finished. With what proof? Everything Constance had was in her briefcase, which disappeared after the accident. We need the documents from the safety deposit box, but we can't find the key. Then let me help you look. I owe you that much for leaving you here alone. I wanted to say yes, wanted to accept her help immediately, but something made me hesitate. How did you know to come here today? I asked slowly. How did you know I'd need help right now? Patty blinked. I didn't know specifically. I've been worried for days. I finally worked up the courage to check on you. But you asked if Dr. Wells saw you, like you knew he'd been here today. I assumed he'd be checking on Mrs. Harrison regularly. He wasn't supposed to come until tomorrow. I stood up, taking a step back. I never called you, Patty. I don't have your number. So how did you know to come right now? Today, when I'm alone and desperate? Her face changed. The fear drained away, replaced by something colder. You're smarter than they gave you credit for, she said quietly. Ice flooded my veins. Who sent you? Nobody sent me. I came on my own. but her voice was different now, flat and emotionless. Gregory called me this morning. Said you might be having doubts, might try to reach out. He wanted me to come here and reinforce the story. Make you trust me. Then call him. If you said anything suspicious. I backed toward the staircase. So the whole story, your daughter, the threats. Oh, that part was true. He really did threaten her. And I really did quit because I was terrified. But do you know what's more terrifying than Gregory Harrison? She stood up, and I noticed for the first time how tall she was. What Gregory Harrison will do if I don't cooperate. Get out of my house. It's not your house, Amelia. It's theirs. Everything here is theirs. Including you. She pulled out her phone. I'm supposed to report back. Tell Gregory whether you suspect anything. And what are you going to tell him? Patty looked at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, she set the phone down on the hall table. I'm going to tell him you're the perfect caretaker. Devoted, unsuspecting, following every instruction Dr. Wells gives you. Because my daughter is 14 years old, and she's all I have in this world, and I will do anything, anything, to keep her safe. Even if it means letting you walk into a trap, Patty. But I'm going to give you one piece of real information before I go. Consider it my conscience trying to make amends. She moved toward the door. There are cameras throughout the house. Gregory had them installed 2 weeks ago, before Mrs. Harrison even left the hospital. He told me they were for security, but I saw where he put them. One in the kitchen, one in the main hallway, one in the library. The library, where we were planning to search for the key. They've been watching you this whole time, Patty continued. Watching how you care for her, documenting everything, building their case against you. And here's the worst part, those cameras are motion activated and they feed directly to Gregory's phone. Even in Chicago, he can see everything you do. My knees felt weak. Everything. Not the bedrooms or bathrooms. Even he has limits. But every other room in this house is being recorded. She opened the front door. I'm sorry, Amelia. I really am. But I have to protect my child. She left, pulling the door shut behind her. I stood in the hallway, my mind racing. They were watching. Right now, at this very moment, Gregory might be looking at his phone, seeing me standing here alone. I forced myself to move naturally, to walk to the kitchen like nothing was wrong. I poured a glass of water with shaking hands, drank it, and rinsed the glass. Normal. Everything had to look normal. Then I climbed the stairs back to Constance's room, my mind working furiously. She was sitting up in bed, stronger already after her brief walk. I heard voices. Who was that? A trap, I said quietly, moving to close the door. They sent the nurse to test me, but she told me about the cameras before she left. There's one in the library. Constance's face fell. Then we can't search for the key. If they see us looking, they'll know I'm awake. We sat in silence, both of us trying to think of a solution that didn't exist. That's when my phone buzzed. A text message from Nathan. Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in. How's Mother? We're thinking of wrapping up the conference early. Might be home tomorrow instead of Friday. Miss you. Tomorrow. They were coming home tomorrow. Constance read the message over my shoulder, and I felt her hand grip mine. They know, she whispered. Something tipped them off. They're coming back to finish this. Another buzz. This time, a photo. It showed the front of the mansion, taken from somewhere down the road. In the driveway, clearly visible, was Patty's dark sedan. The timestamp was from 20 minutes ago. A second text appeared. Looks like you had a visitor. Everything okay? My hands shook as I typed back. Just a former nurse checking on Mrs. Harrison. Everything's fine. 3 dots appeared, showing Nathan was typing. They seemed to pulse forever before his response came through. Good. Make sure you give Mother her evening medications. Dr. Wells said they're especially important tonight. Love you. Constance and I looked at each other. The evening medications, the increased dosage, Dr. Wells had prescribed just an hour ago. They're accelerating the timeline, Constance said. Whatever's in those pills they wanted in my system tonight. Then we don't give them to you. But If I don't take them, I'll start showing signs of improvement. Dr. Wells will notice tomorrow when he checks on me. He'll know something's wrong. We were trapped. If Constance took the medications, they might kill her. If she didn't, the brothers would know she was awake and find another way. I walked to the window and looked out at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, someone was watching the house. Dr. Wells would be back in the morning. The brothers would be home by tomorrow night. We had less than 24 hours to find evidence, expose the truth, and save ourselves. And we couldn't even search the library without being seen. That's when I noticed something strange. At the end of the long driveway, partially hidden behind a tree, was a car. Not Patty's, a different one. Dark, expensive looking, just sitting there with its lights off. Constance, I said slowly, how many people do you think are watching this house right now? She joined me at the window. When she saw the car, her face went pale. That's a Mercedes, she whispered. The same model Gregory drives. But Gregory was supposed to be in Chicago. Unless he'd never left at all, the world seemed to stop spinning. That Mercedes sitting in the shadows, its engine silent, watching, waiting. He never went to Chicago, I said, my voice barely audible. None of them did. Constance gripped the windowsill. The whole trip was a lie. They've been nearby this entire time, watching to see what we do. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nathan. You didn't respond about Mother's medications. Please confirm. You'll give them to her tonight. They were getting impatient. Suspicious. I typed back quickly. Sorry. Was helping her settle. Yes, we'll give medications at 8 p.m. as scheduled. The response came within seconds. Good girl, we really will be home tomorrow. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to kill me, he meant. We're out of time, Constance said. We have to do something right now, tonight, or we're both dead. I turned away from the window, my mind racing through impossible options. We couldn't search the library because of the cameras. We couldn't leave the house because they were watching outside. We couldn't call the police without proof. We were trapped in a mansion that had become our prison. Then an idea struck me, terrible and desperate. But it was all we had. The cameras only cover certain rooms, I said slowly. Kitchen, hallway, library. Not the bedrooms. So we make them think everything is normal. I go downstairs, move around the main floor like I do every evening, make dinner, clean up, act natural. They'll see me on camera doing exactly what they expect. And while you're doing that, you search this bedroom, top to bottom. Maybe you didn't hide the key in the library at all. Maybe your memory is confused because of the accident. Maybe it's been here all along. Constance shook her head. I'm certain it was in the library. The ballet book. We can't get to the library. My voice rose in frustration before I forced it back down. But we can search everywhere else they're not watching. Your bedroom is our only chance. She looked around the room at the dresser, the closet, the bathroom, the dozens of places a small key could be hidden. It's possible, I suppose. The accident did scramble some memories, and I was quite paranoid in those days, hiding things in multiple places. Then we start now. I'll go downstairs and put on a show for the cameras while you search. I helped Constance to her feet. She was steadier now, her legs remembering their strength. If I find it, then what? Then tomorrow morning, you pretend to be unconscious when Dr. Wells comes. I'll tell him you had a difficult night, that I'm worried about your breathing. While he's examining you, I'll slip out, drive to the bank, and get the evidence. They'll follow you. Let them. I'll go to the police station directly from the bank, walk in with the documents and refuse to leave until someone listens. They can't kill me in front of a dozen cops. It wasn't a perfect plan. It had 1,000 ways to fail, but it was all we had. All right, Constance said. Let's do it. I went downstairs, very aware that I was being watched. The camera in the hallway was disguised as a smoke detector. I could see it now that I knew to look. How had I missed it before? In the kitchen, I made myself a sandwich I didn't want and ate it slowly at the table. Normal. Everything had to look normal. A woman alone, caring for her comatose mother-in-law, making dinner. Nothing suspicious. My phone sat on the table, silent now. Were they watching me through the camera right now? Was Gregory in that Mercedes, zooming in on my face, looking for signs of fear? I forced myself to smile as I washed my plate, hummed a little tune, played the role of the innocent wife. Then I prepared Constance's evening medications, the pills that were supposed to kill her. I arranged them in a small cup, poured water into a glass, and carried them upstairs on a tray. This part was crucial. They had to see me going up with the medications at exactly 8 p.m., just as I'd promised. What they couldn't see was what happened behind the closed bedroom door. Constance was on her hands and knees beside the bed, pulling out storage boxes she'd found underneath. Her face was flushed with effort, but her eyes were determined. "Anything," I whispered. "Not yet, but I'm not giving up." I dumped the pills down the bathroom sink and ran water after them, washing away any trace. Then I sat on the bed, pretending to read a book, while Constance searched. She went through everything. The dresser drawers, filled with silk scarves and jewelry boxes. The closet, packed with clothes from decades of elegant living. The bathroom cabinets, lined with expensive lotions and perfumes. Every box, every container, every pocket. An hour passed. Then 2. At 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. Nathan again. "How's Mother? Did the medications help?" "She's resting peacefully," I typed back. "I'm heading to bed soon. Long day. Sleep well, darling. Tomorrow we'll all be together again." The threat was clear, even wrapped in loving words. I helped Constance search, both of us growing more desperate as midnight approached. The key had to be here. It had to be. "Wait," Constance said suddenly. She was staring at the headboard of her bed, an ornate piece of carved mahogany with intricate designs. "When my husband was alive, this bed was in the master suite. I used to hide things." She ran her fingers along the carvings, pressing and probing. Then, with a soft click, a small panel popped open in the decorative woodwork. Inside was a tiny compartment, no bigger than a matchbox, and inside that was a key. We stared at it for a moment, almost afraid to believe it was real. "Is that—" I started. "Yes." Constance pulled it out with trembling fingers. Attached to the key was a small tag with a number written in faded ink. 347. "This is it. Box 347 at First National Bank." Relief flooded through me so intensely I felt dizzy. We did it. We actually did it. "Now comes the hard part," Constance said. "Getting you out of this house alive." We spent the next hour planning. I would leave at 9 a.m., right after Dr. Wells's visit. I'd tell him I needed to run errands, groceries, pharmacy, normal things. If anyone followed me, I'd drive normally until I got close to the police station, then speed up and run inside. "The password is Nightingale," Constance reminded me. "Tell them I sent you, show them the key, they should let you access the box. And you'll be here alone with Dr. Wells. I've been fooling him for over a week. I can manage one more day." She gripped my hand. "Amelia, if something goes wrong, if they stop you somehow, you run. You don't come back here. You don't try to save me. You just run and save yourself. Promise me, I'm not leaving you. Promise me." Her voice was fierce. "One of us has to survive this. One of us has to make sure they pay for what they've done." I didn't want to promise. But looking into her eyes, I understood. This wasn't about us anymore. It was about justice. "I promise," I whispered. We tried to sleep, but neither of us really could. I lay on the small couch in Constance's room, listening to her breathe, watching the shadows move across the walls. Outside, that Mercedes sat in the darkness, a predator waiting for morning. At 6 a.m., I got up and showered, dressed in my most normal clothes, jeans and a sweater. I made breakfast and ate it in the kitchen under the watchful eye of the hidden camera. Just another day. Nothing special. At 8:30, Dr. Wells arrived. I met him at the door with a smile that felt like it might crack my face. "Good morning, Dr. Wells." "Good morning, Amelia." "How was the night?" "Quiet. Mrs. Harrison seems stable." We went upstairs together. Constance lay perfectly still, her chest rising and falling in that mechanical rhythm. Dr. Wells checked her vitals, examined her eyes, tested her reflexes. His face revealed nothing. "Everything looks good," he said finally. "Continue with the current medication schedule." "Actually," I said carefully, "I need to run some errands this morning. We're low on groceries, and I need to pick up a prescription. I should only be gone a few hours." He frowned slightly. "Is that wise? Leaving Mrs. Harrison alone? She's stable, like you said, and I'll have my phone if you need to reach me." For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he nodded. "I suppose a few hours won't hurt. But be back by noon. She'll need her midday medications." "Of course." He left. I waited until his car disappeared down the driveway. Then I turned to Constance. "This is it," I said. She nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Be careful. And Amelia, thank you for believing me, for staying." I wanted to hug her, but there wasn't time. I grabbed my purse, slipped the key inside, and headed for the door. My car was in the garage. I got in, started the engine, and pulled out into the morning sunshine. In my rearview mirror, I saw the Mercedes start moving. They were following me, just as we'd expected. I drove normally through the residential streets, heading toward town. The Mercedes stayed 3 cars back, thinking I didn't notice. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white. First National Bank was on Main Street. The police station was 2 blocks away. I just had to get there. At a red light, I checked my mirror again. The Mercedes was closer now, only 1 car between us. My heart hammered. The light turned green. I drove another block. The bank was ahead on the right. I put on my turn signal. That's when I saw it. Parked directly in front of the bank's entrance, blocking the way, was Nathan's car. And standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching me approach, were all 3 Harrison brothers. They'd been waiting. They'd known exactly where I was going. My foot hovered over the brake. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to run. But Constance's words echoed in my mind. One of us has to survive this. I looked in the rearview mirror. Gregory's Mercedes had pulled up right behind me. I was boxed in. Then my phone rang. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. My hand shaking, I answered it. "Hello, darling." Nathan's voice was cold, empty of any warmth it once held. "Why don't you park the car and come have a conversation with your family? We have so much to discuss." I looked at the 3 men waiting for me. At Gregory's Mercedes behind me. At the bank so close and yet impossibly far away. And I made my choice. Instead of braking, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal. My car jumped forward, engine roaring. Nathan dove out of the way as I swerved around his vehicle, my side mirror clipping his with a crack of breaking glass. Someone was shouting. Tires squealed behind me as Gregory tried to follow, but I had a head start, and I knew these streets better than they thought. I ran a red light, horns blaring around me, turned sharply down a side street. My phone was ringing again and again, but I ignored it. 2 blocks, 1 block. The police station loomed ahead, its American flag whipping in the morning breeze. I pulled into the parking lot, threw the car into park, and ran for the entrance. My purse clutched against my chest. Behind me, I heard Gregory's Mercedes screech into the lot, but I was faster. I burst through the police station doors, gasping for breath, and screamed the words that would either save my life or end it. "I need help. Someone is trying to kill me, and I have proof." Every head in the station turned toward me. And in my purse, burning like a promise of justice, was a small key that held the power to destroy the Harrison family forever. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that the real nightmare was only just beginning. Because the police officer who stepped forward to help me, his badge glinting in the fluorescent lights, was Gregory Harrison's golf partner, and he was already reaching for his phone. The officer's hand moved toward his phone, and I saw it, the flash of recognition in his eyes, the slight hesitation that told me everything I needed to know. Gregory's connections ran deeper than I'd imagined, but I wasn't alone in that police station. "Officer Chen is unavailable," a woman's voice cut through the tension. A female detective stepped between us, her badge reading, Detective Angela Morrison. She looked at me with sharp, assessing eyes. "I'll take this case." Officer Chen's face tightened, but he stepped back. Detective Morrison guided me into a private interrogation room, and the moment the door closed, I pulled out the key and started talking. I told her everything: the cut breaks, the fake coma, the poison disguised as medicine, the stolen millions. Words tumbled out in a frantic rush. "These are serious accusations," she said carefully. "Do you have any proof?" "This key opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box 347. Everything we need is inside bank records, forged documents, evidence of fraud. The password is Nightingale." Detective Morrison studied me for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and made a call. "Judge Peters? Angela Morrison. I need an emergency warrant." "Yes, Your Honor, it's urgent." 20 minutes later, we were walking into First National Bank with a warrant and 2 additional detectives I'd never seen before, people Gregory didn't own. The bank manager verified the box number and password, and when they opened it, everything was there. Dozens of documents showing years of theft, forged signatures, fake invoices, evidence that would send all 3 Harrison brothers to prison. "We need to get to the mansion," I said urgently. "Constance is still there, and Dr. Wells." "Already handled," Detective Morrison said, showing me her phone. "I sent units there the moment you mentioned someone in danger. They arrived 4 minutes ago." Relief nearly knocked me to my knees. The next hours were a blur of statements and paperwork. I learned that Dr. Wells had tried to flee when police arrived, but was caught before he reached his car. Constance was taken to the hospital, a real hospital this time, with doctors who actually wanted to save her life. Gregory, Nathan, and Liam were arrested in the police station parking lot as they tried to decide whether to run or talk their way out. Gregory's connections couldn't save him from a warrant signed by a federal judge. Detective Morrison had made sure of that. I gave my statement 3 times, to 3 different people. By evening, I was exhausted and numb. Detective Morrison drove me to the hospital herself. Constance was in a private room, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her, but her eyes were bright and alert. Real doctors had examined her and confirmed everything: the poison in her system, the evidence of attempted murder, the fact that she'd been days away from death. "You did it," she said when I walked in. Her voice was hoarse but strong. "You actually did it." I sank into the chair beside her bed. "We did it. Together. What happens now?" "Now they go to trial," Detective Morrison says, with all the evidence. "It's an open and shut case. Fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy. They're looking at decades in prison." Constance closed her eyes, and for a moment I thought she might cry. But when she opened them again, they were dry. "Good. They deserve every single year." We sat in silence for a while. "What about you?" she asked finally. "What will you do?" I'd been asking myself the same question. My husband had tried to kill me. My marriage was over. My life as I knew it had imploded. "I don't know," I admitted. "Start over, I suppose. Find a new place to live, keep teaching, try to remember what normal feels like." "You'll need a lawyer for the divorce," Constance said. "And probably therapy. I know an excellent therapist." Despite everything, I smiled. "You're already planning my future. Someone has to." She reached out and took my hand. "Amelia, I owe you my life. Everything I have, everything that's rightfully mine after we recover. What they stole half of it is yours. I don't want your money. I'm not asking what you want. I'm telling you what you've earned." Her grip tightened. "You're the daughter I should have raised instead of those monsters. You're brave and kind and loyal. You didn't leave me, even when you could have, even when you should have." Tears finally came, hot and fast, streaming down my face. I was so scared. "I know. So was I." She pulled me closer, and I rested my head on the edge of her bed while she stroked my hair like a mother comforting a child. "But we survived. We won." 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom and watched Gregory, Nathan, and Liam Harrison receive their sentences. Gregory got 25 years. Nathan got 20. Liam, who turned state's evidence and testified against his brothers, got 15. Dr. Wells got 30 years for attempted murder and conspiracy. None of them looked at me during sentencing. Maybe they couldn't bear to face the woman they'd underestimated so completely. Constance recovered fully. The poison had done some damage, but with proper treatment and physical therapy, she regained her strength. She sold the mansion neither of us could stand to be in that house again and bought a smaller, warmer place by the ocean. I moved into a cottage nearby. With my share of the recovered money, I could have stopped working, but I loved teaching too much to quit. My kindergartners gave me hope, reminded me that not everyone in the world was cruel. Constance and I had dinner together twice a week. Sometimes we talked about what happened. More often, we didn't. We talked about books and movies and the children in my class and her new hobby of painting. We built a new life, one that had nothing to do with the Harrison brothers or their greed. On the 1-year anniversary of the day, everything changed. Constance and I drove to the police station. We brought flowers and a card for Detective Morrison, thanking her for believing me when it mattered most. "Just doing my job," she said, but she smiled as she accepted them. "You saved our lives," I told her. "No," Morrison corrected gently. "You saved your own lives. I just helped clean up the mess afterward. Sometimes, late at night, I still dream about that morning Constance's eyes snapping open, her whispered warning, the terror of realizing my husband wanted me dead. I wake up gasping, my heart pounding, but then I remember how it ended. Not with me as a victim, but as a survivor. Not with silence, but with truth. The Harrison brothers had been so certain they could manipulate everyone around them, so confident in their power and connections. They never considered that two women, one old, one young, both underestimated, could be stronger than all their money and influence combined. They had tried to kill us. Instead, we destroyed them, and in doing so, we saved ourselves. I still teach kindergarten. I still have tea with Constance twice a week. I still sometimes look over my shoulder, old habits dying hard, but I'm free. We both are, and that, in the end, is the only revenge that truly matters.